Booktube, welcome back to my channel. Welcome to day 14 of Vlogmas. It's also the first day of Litmas, which is a 12-day challenge that Adrian from Stripped Book Lit started. And there are 12 very specific challenges where every day you're supposed to make a video that addresses that challenge. So I'm going to try to incorporate some of those into my Vlogmas videos. Today being the first day of Litmas means that I should share my favorite poem. I'm sorry for the noise outside. There's a cement maker outside of my window. What you gonna do? Still gotta make booktube videos, right? I have several favorite poems. One is Lochinvar by Sir Walter Scott. It's a poem that I have liked since I was a child, and I think then I didn't really understand the controversial themes in the poem. I just really liked the character's name. Lochinvar is a knight who's in love with this girl named Ellen, and he wants to marry her, but her father says no. So the father promises her to someone else instead. And at her wedding, Lochinvar shows up. And because he's a knight, you know, he has certain rights and privileges. So he claims a dance with young Ellen. And everybody's looking at him, you know, because he's this eligible guy. The bridesmaids are looking at him and saying, you know, man, we should have really set him up with Ellen. They don't know about the love relationship. And while he is dancing with Ellen, he dances her out through the door, and they ride off into the sunset. No one knows where they're gone. I love the idea of true love winning, true love conquering all. But while I'm happy for Lochinvar and Ellen and their unenduring love, I can't help feeling bad for the young bridegroom who's just standing there like he hasn't done anything. He found a girl that he was, you know, he's all gung-ho to get married, and at the end of the night, his wife is gone. So the poem doesn't truly represent all of my values, but come on, it's a really great story. Oh, young Lochinvar is come out of the west. Through all the wide border, his steed was the best. And save his good broadsword, he weapons had none. He rode all unarmed, and he rode all alone. So faithful in love, and so dauntless in war, there never was knight like the young Lochinvar. He stayed not for brake, and he stopped not for stone. He swam the Esk River where ford there was none. But ere he alighted at Netherby gate, the bride had consented, the gallant came late. For a laggard in love and a dastard in war was to wed the fair Ellen of brave Lochinvar. So boldly he entered the Netherby hall, among bridesmen and kinsmen and brothers and all. Then spoke the bride's father, his hand on his sword, for the poor craven bridegroom said never a word. Oh, come ye in peace here, or come ye in war, or to dance at our bridal, young Lord Lochinvar? I long wooed your daughter, my suit you denied. Love swells like the Solway, but ebbs like its tide. And now I am come with this lost love of mine, to lead but one measure, drink one cup of wine. There are maidens in Scotland, more lovely by far, that would gladly be bride to the young Lochinvar. The bride kissed the goblet, the knight took it up. He quaffed off the wine, and he threw down the cup. She looked down to blush, and she looked up to sigh, with a smile on her lips and a tear in her eye. He took her soft hand, ere her mother could bar. Now tread we a measure, said young Lochinvar. So stately his form, and so lovely her face, that never a hall such a gallard did grace. While her mother did fret, and her father did fume, and the bridegroom stood dangling his bonnet and plume, and the bridemaidens whispered 'twere better by far to have matched our fair cousin with young Lochinvar. One touch to her hand, and one word in her ear, when they reached the hall door, and the charger stood near. So light to the croup, the fair lady he swung, so light to the saddle, before her he sprung. She is won, we are gone, over bank, bush, and scar. They'll have fleet steeds that follow, quoth young Lochinvar. There was mounting among Grahames of the Netherby clan, Forsters, Fenwicks, and Musgraves, they rode and they ran. There was racing and chasing on Cannobie Lee, but the lost bride of Netherby ne'er did they see, so daring in love, and so dauntless in war. Have ye e'er heard of gallant like young Lochinvar? So just by reading it again, I don't feel sorry for the bridegroom. Like, he just stands there. He's one of those, like, clueless, dimless, witless men that you feel sympathy for, but you don't really want to do anything to change their circumstances. Like, he just stands there and watches some other guy ride off with his wife. What is he doing? That's Lochinvar. That's one of my favorite poems from my childhood. One of my adult favorite poems is Dream Deferred by Langston Hughes. And I first read this poem when I was still in Jamaica and didn't know anything about Harlem. And when I moved here and I realized that I could live in Harlem and live amongst a place where Langston Hughes lived and wrote, I knew I had to. So it is a short poem. It says, what happens to a dream deferred? Does it dry up like a raisin in the sun, or fester like a sore and then run? Does it stink like rotten meat, or crust and sugar over like a syrupy sweet? Maybe it just sags like a heavy load, or does it explode? I could get into this poem in lots of different ways. I like the idea of him writing about this dream deferred. Deferred doesn't mean necessarily that you have decided to cancel the dream, but that you keep delaying it, that you keep putting it off. There's this thing that you want, this thing that you aspire to, but you procrastinate your way through life, not really working towards this dream. And eventually, the dream itself rots inside of you. It is the poem that inspired A Raisin in the Sun, this play by Lorraine Hansberry, who was an African-American playwright, and I think she was the first African-American playwright to have a show on Broadway. Every time I think about not doing the things that I have dreamed about doing my whole life, I remember this poem, and it prods me to work on my dream, to not forget my dream, to not defer my dream, because I don't want it to get to the place where it starts to fester in me like a sore. What I like about the rhythm of the poem, what I like about his stance in the poem, is that right when you think he's reached a conclusion, that maybe it just sags like a heavy load weighing down this dreamer, but then he goes back to offer another hypothesis. So he says, maybe it just sags like a heavy load, or does it explode? As though just when you think that all is lost and the person is now running inside from this dream, that maybe the dream explodes and causes momentum in this dreamer, that maybe the dreamer gets to that point where when the dream explodes inside of him, there is no way to escape that dynamism, and the dream gets realized at some point. So those are two of my favorite poems, one from an English historian and poet and novelist Sir Walter Scott, and one from Langston Hughes, famous African-American writer and novelist. These two poems are as different as they come, but they're two of my favorite poems, so I wanted to share them here for day one of Litmas, and we'll be back tomorrow. And I guess you've noticed that I've started decorating for Christmas finally. I'm under the weather, you could probably hear I'm very nasal, very stuffy, but I will not be deterred. That dream of Christmas will not fester inside of me. I will decorate, I will. So I hope you'll come back tomorrow for day 15 of Vlogmas. Until then, happy reading. Bye.